Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9 says this: For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast.
God, thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for this chance that we get to just take a moment and worship you and to look at your word, God, and see how much we mean to you. I pray, Lord Jesus, I believe, and you know this, God, that this night, this sermon, this series is something that you've been laying on our hearts since October. God, I believe that tonight you have everyone here because you want them to know about this thing called grace. God, I just pray that by the power of your Spirit, who I believe is here tonight in this room, that you would speak to us, that you would move in our hearts, that you would amplify my words, that we understand them in ways that we've maybe never understood before. I humble myself before you, God. Use this time tonight for your glory and for the salvation of everyone in this room. In Jesus' name I pray. And everyone said, amen. All right, thank you, Josh, for reading for us tonight. I appreciate that. We're going to start kind of introducing some students up here. If you'd ever like to do that and you're a student, please come see me afterwards. We'll get you on a list. Couple of things, little housekeeping thing here real quick. I know that we have one VIP here in the room tonight. I'm not going to draw you out or anything like that. But I just want to talk to everyone, okay? Worship, okay? The thing that we just did, this thing called music. I want you to know how intentional we are about that, okay? You may notice, like if you've been going to church for a long time, you know that we call it worship. It's just something that we call it because that's what it is. We're here to worship God. But on a Wednesday night, we don't say that word. Have you ever noticed that? On a Wednesday night, typically we say, enjoy it, join us in singing. Thank you for singing with us, things like that. What I want you to understand is that that's another layer of kind of the intentionality that we have with you bringing your friends, okay? I want you to imagine going to a church for the very first time and maybe being invited by your friend, and you're there, and you're like, you have this expectation that church is lame, and all of a sudden you play a game, and you come in, and you're like, they invited me to worship? I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to get up there, that kind of thing. So we invite you guys to sing just because we know there's some people, hopefully, that you're inviting your friends that don't know what worship is, but they know what singing is. Number one. Number two, I want to encourage you with this. Listen up. If you believe in Jesus, if you're a believer in this room and you're a Christian, I'd like to maybe challenge you, especially my high school students, especially you guys, okay? I'd like to challenge you to maybe stop seeing midweeks as a ministry for you and maybe start seeing it as a ministry of you. And here's what I mean by this. Typically, we will call students forward to sing. And the reason that we like to do that is because, frankly, if we're worshiping God and any part of us means it, we should be celebrating. This is a pretty awesome God that we serve, right? And worship is a chance to kind of glorify him. And I just don't love, I want to challenge you with this. If you're a believer in this room, I understand you have a bad day, things like that. I don't know that I like the look for someone who comes to church like, oh, look at those Christians. They're in the back. They didn't even go forward with everyone. They must not care about this God. So if you're just kind of chilling out and being lazy and things like that, and I know you really well, I'm going to challenge you to come forward. And really, to be honest with you, I love you. But the reason I'm challenging you to come forward is because I know you, and I know that there's a part of you that loves God, and I want you to set an example. That's it. Just understand that when we do an event like this, when we do dodgeball like that, all this kind of stuff, the hope and the prayer is that as people come here and they experience kids who aren't judgmental, they experience this safe place, they experience seeing kids who actually love God and are actually here to worship him, that they go, oh, this is real. What doesn't look real is if like you just hear faking it. And here's what I'm going to challenge you. You may push back and go, what do you mean? Like, I don't, what if I don't feel like coming forward? Let me just push on this. When I'm worshiping God, I don't always feel like it. I'm human. It's like I've been married to Ginger now for 17 years. Every day of my life, I love her. But some days I feel that love more than others. You guys have all experienced this, right? We're human, so there's ebbs and flows. Okay, and I'm sure Ginger feels the same way because between the two of us, I'm the one that's a larger proponent of being a jerk, okay? So My point is this. I don't always get up here and raise my hands out of this emotion where I'm like, man, I just feel it. I just love God. Sometimes for me, it's simply obedience and truth. I am raising my hands out of obedience, declaring that these things that we sing are absolutely true. And that's what I'm doing. It's just like I declare that I love you even though, God, I don't feel it right now. Sometimes you have to love by showing up, not by feeling. So I just want to challenge you, students. Like, I love it when we get to camp because we're the church that's like racing the other churches to the front, but then we get back to church, we're like, whatever, I'm gonna sit. Okay, I get it. And please, I empathize with that. But I just want to challenge you, like, even when you're not feeling it, stand up and declare the truths that we're singing because God is good, God is love, and He is worthy of our worship, whether we feel like it or not. Are you with me? Also, shameless plug, stinking bring your friends, okay? Seriously, what are we doing? Invite your friends, okay? Listen, I've seen lives changed out of this church because you guys brought your friends, okay? People are coming to church expecting this, not knowing what this is, expecting it to be lame, expecting it to be judgmental, expecting it to be boring, and what they're experiencing here is actually something real because we're not here faking it. We're here because we actually love God. We're here because we actually care about you and we care about your friends. So bring your friends. You with me? Capiche? Thank you. Okay. Happy Wednesday night. I hope this last week has been good for you. I'm so excited to be here. Listen, I've been praying about this night really honestly, genuinely since October, okay? I know we have one new person here tonight, so if you don't know me, my name is Mike Strati, and this is my favorite part of every midweek, okay? This is what we do. We show up, we have fun, we hang out, we sing to our amazing God, and then we talk about God for about 20 minutes, okay? 20, 25 minutes. And really, my favorite thing is to talk about Jesus Christ. Tonight, we're going to finish this 3-part conversation that we called a safe place, 2022, a safe place for the real you. And I just want to challenge you with this. Put your phones away. Put your phones away. Ignore the person next to you that's talking to you. I want to invite you to just really hone in tonight. I cannot express this enough. This is the night that we've been praying for since October. We've been praying about this evening and about what God's going to do starting tonight since October when God started to lay it on our hearts to have this conversation with you guys. So whatever you do, if you've ever felt loved, if you ever valued this, put your phone away and focus in tonight, okay? Over the last few weeks, we've been talking about a problem that, as it turns out, all of us kind of share. Here's the problem. This is the problem we started talking about 2 weeks ago. We work very hard to craft how others see us. We work very hard to craft how other people see us, okay? Very hard. And we certainly only want certain people to see certain aspects of who we are. We want our church friends and our church leaders to see certain parts of who we are. We want our school friends to see certain parts of who we are. We want our parents to see certain parts of who we are. And this is the reality that many of us live in. This is who we are. If not most, all of us do it. I mean, it's got to be most of us. In fact, if I could be so bold, I'll just say everyone in this room does this, myself included. It's part of being human. We work very hard to make sure that people in those specific groups only get to see the part of you that you want them to see. In fact, I want to just be a little dramatic and a little silly. I think this is a pandemic, and I'm not talking about COVID, and even there's a pandemic of fear of rejection. Every single one of us has this deep-seated fear that something that we're going to say or something that we've done or some part of who we are is going to lead to someone rejecting us and not accepting us, and that is the most unsafe thing that we could possibly feel. I know, here's the thing, I'd bet my house on the fact that all of you want to feel safe, that you want to feel accepted, you want to feel like you matter, you want to feel all these things. And one of the greatest fears with that reality is that the opposite. It's the opposite. It's called rejection. You're afraid of being rejected. And that's the fear. So we hide. We let certain groups of people into certain areas of our lives and other people into other areas, but we rarely let anyone get to know the real version of us. Abel shared this quote last week. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This is an actual quote from a high school student, and I think it fits this perfectly well. People have no idea who I really am or what I'm going through. My parents don't know, and people at church don't know either. But I know if I tell people what I'm going through, that they'll look at me differently. So I just put on a mask every day, and I pretend to be fine. This is where last week Abel had everyone put their hand on their face and take their mask off. This quote, this is where like you just go, yeah, same. if you're just being real with yourself. We are so afraid. We're afraid of how the different groups in our lives would react if they knew who we were, if our church friends knew what I really had done, if my school friends knew that I went to church, if my parents found out that I ... If that's you, and I would bet that it's all of us, if nowhere is completely safe, if you're just showing certain parts of who you are to different people, I'm glad you're here. I'm going to be honest with you, and most of you know what this means and know that I'm being genuine. We have tried to pray. I've tried to picture every one of your faces over the last few months as we've kind of prepared for this. I've prayed for each of you specifically as best as I could through memory. We've been praying for you. Our goal in 2022 is to create a safe space here for the real version of you, a safe enough space for you to show us who you really are. This is why last week Abel showed us in a text in the book of John, John chapter 4, about an interaction between Jesus and a Samaritan woman who's at a well. Okay, if you were here last week, you remember this. Abel, did we get that sermon posted on YouTube? If you missed it, you can go back to our YouTube channel. We always try and post our sermons onto YouTube, and which we will do again with this one tonight if you want to watch it again or show it to a friend. This is a powerful moment in John chapter 4. Abel shared this last week, where Jesus interacts with a woman who had just a lot to hide. And she was really honestly trying to hide a lot. Okay, and if you've been going to church, you've heard about this story, John chapter 4. It's called The Woman at the Well. There's this interaction where Jesus meets a woman at a well. And this is a strange interaction in cultural times because Jewish men did not hang out with women who were not their wives at noon at a well. That was scandalous. It'd be like you seeing me at midnight on Van Buren downtown. You'd be like, what's he doing there for, okay? And if you don't know what Van Buren is, it's a great place where a lot of prostitutes hang out, okay? It just doesn't fit. Like, why is Pastor Mike on Van Buren downtown at midnight? That feels wrong. This would have felt wrong. Abel talked about this last week. And what makes this scene that he talked about such a beautiful scene is the truth that we genuinely cannot hide any part of who we are with God. We can't hide. It's not possible. You see, she was there in secret hiding, trying to get water when no one else was around and when no one would see her. But instead, Jesus was there. Not only was he there, but he already knew everything about her, everything that she was so desperately trying to hide. But instead, when she met God in the flesh, instead of rejection, when all that she had done was brought to light by Jesus, she found acceptance. And this is where Abel gave us his big idea last week. He says, God sees the real me. He talked about this. Like, we're all trying to hide certain aspects of us. And by the way, let me just applaud us. You're good at it. You are really, really good at letting people see only the parts that you want them to see. In fact, I would argue that potentially no generation in human history has ever been better at hiding and keeping secrets about themselves, about making sure that one group of people knows this part of me, one group of people knows this part of me. But here's the truth, and this is the beauty of this passage, is that you can't hide those things from God. And so that's kind of where we left it off last week, right? So this week we're going to take it one step farther. Okay? We're going to just go one step farther in this story. We're going to unpack this like part 2 of Abel's sermon tonight, okay? We're going to look at that text just a little bit more, that story a little bit more, and then we're going to look at this Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 9. It was just read a moment ago by Josh. In this text, which we'll bring up in a second here, Ephesians 2, 8, and 9, this verse kind of brings up a word that we've been talking about the past few weeks, okay? And it's this word grace. Tonight, as we close our series and prepare for our next one next week, okay? Got a really cool one next week. You should show up for that. It's called An Upside Down Love. As we close our series and prepare for the next one, we need to take some time tonight to really understand this word grace. Because grace, as it turns out, is exactly what you and I need. It is the one thing that we need more than anything else in this world. It's called grace. It's exactly what we need in order to create a safe space for the real you in 2022. So the question we're going to ask tonight is, what is grace? So I just thought I'd take a moment here too. I'm just going to ask the question, what is grace? And if you think you know the answer, just kind of raise your hand, throw it in the air, wave it like you just don't care, and just throw out like what if you think you know what grace is. Anyone? This is kind of scary for some people. You're like, I don't know. Okay, what do you think grace is? Okay, what else? Yeah. God's mercy. What else? When? A second chance. You see, most of the time when I ask people about grace, the thing that comes up the most is this word called mercy, okay? We call it mercy, okay? Mercy and grace are actually quite different. Let me explain to you what mercy is, okay? Mercy is not getting a punishment that you deserve. So let's say that, I don't know, who do I want to pick on? Chris steals something from me. Let's just say that Chris steals something from me, and I find out about it, and I just go, that's cool, dude, nothing's going to happen. That's called mercy. Okay, but grace is something quite a bit more than mercy, and this is what I want you to hear tonight. But in order to understand this, I'm actually going to need to do an illustration. So you guys want to have some fun with me for a second? I'm going to make you laugh a little bit, okay? We're going to do an illustration tonight. This will help us understand what grace is. To understand grace, I'm going to need some help. So the first thing that I need here is a big, scary villain, okay? I need a big, scary villain. You know what? None of you work. We're just going to pick Johnny, okay? Come on up, Johnny. Johnny, you just come sit right. Johnny's the perfect big, scary villain because he's the opposite of big, scary. He's just big and cuddly, okay? By the way, this dude is, you ever see this guy in the gym? Work out with him. You can get buff, okay? So this is our big, scary villain. Okay, stop smiling. You're a villain. Okay, no, it's great. You're a happy villain. That's fine. Okay, next thing I need is a damsel in distress. I need a damsel. If you're a boy, put your hand down. It won't work. Damsel in distress. Ava, you're perfect. Come on up, Ava. Ava, I need you to come stand right next to Johnny, okay? And Johnny's going to grab your arm because he's the bully, and you're the one being bullied, and you're the damsel in distress. So come right over here, okay? Grab the inside of her arm, okay? And you just look, okay, because you're being bullied. Next thing I need is a hero, okay? I need a hero. Yep, you're perfect. Come on up. No, you can't point to someone else. That's like raising your hand. I need a hero. You know what? I actually think this is great. Come on up, Kayla. Today, heroes are also girls. They don't have to be boys. Sometimes the better heroes are girls. Yeah, girl power. By the way, I've always thought if there was like a girl power movement, it shouldn't, like this is black power, that it should be girl power. All right, so here's our hero. This is Kayla, okay? Kayla, hero. Ava, damsel in distress. Johnny, villain, okay? So now I want you to imagine that Johnny is bullying and shaking Ava's arms. She's like bullying her. He's really mad. It's a bad situation. He's mean and he's threatening violence against poor little Ava, okay? Interestingly enough, Ava's boyfriend is nowhere to be found, as most boyfriends are in this situation, okay? They just run, okay? Anyway, sorry, nowhere to be found. So, strangely not present, and she's scared. She's scared. And he's mad. Yeah, he's mad, just like that. It's good. And it's starting to get ugly, okay? But then, as any good movie, comes the hero, okay? And every time we say the word hero, we're going to play a sound. Not that sound, Isaac. That's the wrong sound. When you hear the word hero, yeah, that's the sound we're going to play. So then comes the hero. There we go. Okay? We have Kayla. She comes into the situation knowing that she cannot ever dream of beating Johnny in a fight. Stop booing. Get control of yourself back there. Anyway, okay. So then comes Ava. She knows that she's never going to be able to beat Johnny in a fight because Johnny's a monster. He's just mean and a bully. And she's small and not mean. But Kayla is a hero. Stick with me back there, Isaac. Okay, she's a hero. She's going to risk it all anyway. So our hero walks up and punches Johnny in the face as hard as he can. Boom! Johnny goes flying. Okay? That's our hero. Okay, and our hero wins because Johnny lets go of Ava. Ava, you're free to go. And now the problem is Johnny's turning his attention on Kayla. Okay? So what's going to happen next? What do we think happens next? When the bully gets punched by a smaller person, what happens next? What do you think? Somebody tell him how to tell a story. What happens next? Nope, that's not what happens in these stories. What happens next? The bully beats up the hero. So Johnny gets ready, gets all big and angry and starts to go after Kayla. But wait, just out of curiosity, what would mercy look like here? What would mercy look like? He would go, it's okay, I forgive you. Yeah, right? Now, before we let them go, here's my question. What would grace look like here? If mercy is Johnny saying, yeah, I'm not going to do anything to you, what is grace? Grace, remember we said grace is something quite different, quite a bit more. You see, grace, in fact, is mercy, but mercy is only part of it. If Johnny offered Kayla $10, then it would be more than mercy, right? So, Johnny, a little while ago, I gave you a $10 bill. Why don't you pull that out? So what Johnny is saying here is, I'm not going to beat you up, Kayla, which is probably a good thing. And instead of just not beating you up, before I let you go, here's a fresh $10 bill. That is grace. Give him a round of applause. No, that $10 is yours because otherwise it wouldn't be grace. Now, here's the beauty of this. When you guys reacted to that, okay, you're like, whoa, right? That is the reaction that grace should get. You see, listen up. Everyone listen. Hone in right here. Pay attention. Focus on me. I need you to hear this. This is important. When a hero that's small goes after a bully and punches the bully, the hero expects retaliation. Most of us are used to seeing mercy. We can see it in situations in life. Sometimes we give mercy. Someone treats us terribly, and we just go, it's not worth it. I'm going to let them go. I'm just going to forgive them. Mercy is a beautiful, wonderful thing, is it not? But mercy is not grace. Mercy is sweet. It's kind. It's something that inspires us. But grace is something quite a bit more. Grace is not getting the punishment. We'll put this up on the screen here. Grace is not getting the punishment that you deserve and being given a gift that you don't deserve. Here's what I want you to see. When you realized that Kayla was actually given a gift, it wasn't just an act, right? It was like Kayla just was given $10 by the bully that she beat up. Would anyone expect that? No. You might understand mercy. You might just go, whatever, it's fine, I forgive you. But what's strange and awkward and crazy and just mind-blowing is when the bully goes, in fact, not only am I going to forgive you, but here's what I want to do. I want to give you a $10 bill. And you're like, oh, that was really cool, but like, no, she actually gets a $10 bill. You react, you go, yo, like that. That's what grace does. That's exactly what grace does. And this is what I want you to see, Ephesians 2:8-9. Take a look at this. Everyone, focus on this verse. Look, for by grace you have been saved, meaning through a gift of God you have been saved through your faith in Jesus. I'm adding Mike Zarati's translation to this. And it's not because of anything that you did. You didn't do anything fancy. She didn't do anything that earned that gift from the bully. In fact, you would argue that what she did earned the opposite from the bully, right? You would argue that she earned a sock in the face from a giant bicep. She did not earn that gift. She earned the opposite of that gift, but she was given mercy and then given a gift on top of it. That's what it's saying here when it says it's not your own doing. It is a gift from God. It's something that God gives you. It's not a result of your works because of anything that you've done. Because if it was a result of your works, then it's about you. It's about what you did. You could boast. You're like, look what I earned. Look what I got. But the truth is, Kayla didn't earn the $10. She earned the opposite of $10. And that's exactly the story that we get from Jesus. Our sin, which is in direct contradiction to what God wants us to do, how he wants us to live, our sin earns us punishment. Our sin has earned us punishment. God said at the very beginning of the book in Genesis, if you sin, you'll die. That's what sin does. It causes death. And that wasn't like, I'm going to punish you with sin. It was a warning. It's a consequence. Sin causes death. Romans 6:23 says this, for the wages of sin is death. A wage is something you earn. When you work for an hour, you earn $1. The wages of sin is death. So when we sin, we earn death, which means separation from God. But there's this gift, this free gift, just like we saw here, that God gives you out of love. You see, we all deserve this punishment. We've earned it. But instead, this verse is saying that through faith in Jesus, not because of anything we did, but because of God's love for us, we're given a gift, the gift of being saved, or in other words, being rescued from our sin. Are you with me? Turn to your neighbor and say, I'm with him. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Here's what I want you to understand. This illustration is great because it helps you to see grace, but you know where this illustration falls short? Here's what I want you to understand. This illustration falls short because God doesn't just give us one gift. You see, there's this phrase in the New Testament, it's called grace upon grace upon grace, and it means that God is endlessly giving us gifts. Most of us believe that grace means that because of Jesus' death and his resurrection, because he died on the cross with God putting all of our sin on his shoulder, he punished Jesus in our place, and then 3 days later rose from the grave because he was God and couldn't be held dead. He defeats sin now. So really, most people think that's really cool. Now that I believe in Jesus, I can be forgiven of my sin. Yay! That's like being given the $10 bill. And yes, it's true. You are going to be given that $10 bill. You are going to be forgiven for your sin. But it does not end there. There's more. And this is what I want you to catch. If you haven't been with me, if you've been looking at your neighbor, I need you to focus on me right now because this is the part that's life-changing. Not only does Jesus offer forgiveness, but through his forgiveness, which is actually mercy, we're forgiven and given another gift. We're given a place in the family of God, meaning that you and I are saved from our sin, but not just saved from our sin, we're also saved for a future with Jesus. Without pain, without sorrow, without guilt, without shame. And that's quite a gift. You see, it's a beautiful thing to be forgiven, right? Because if I do you wrong, hear me out. If I do you wrong and you're mad at me, and you have a right to be mad at me, and there's a reason to be mad at me, you realize that when you forgive me, you actually set us both free. Because when we stick in our shame and when we stick in our anger, not only is the person who you're mad at kind of not free because you're mad, but you're not free either because you're mad. Forgiveness sets us both free, but that's not all that Jesus is offering. He's offering a gift on top of the forgiveness. And that is a future with him when there is no pain, there is no sorrow. That's grace. Grace is not just one gift, it never stops giving. The gift is not just now, it's also for the future. And it also starts now. Let me illustrate this because this is kind of where everyone's like, okay, I'm not sure I'm with you. Think of the woman at the well. What do you mean, Mike, that like my forgiveness is now, but for the future, but like that can also, like there's this circular thing. It's now, future, now. Like what does that mean? Hear me out. Most people are like, I don't know how that starts, like the gift of heaven starts now because I'm not in heaven. Here's my question. Do you think that the woman at the well, after she met Jesus, do you think her life got better or worse? Do you think her life got better or worse? It's interesting. I think some of you would be like, it's a trick question. It's definitely worse. Some of you would be like, no, it definitely got better. Do you think she was happier or more sad? Let me show you what I mean. In this story, we see the woman at the well. I'm going to argue that she ran 2 times. What do you mean she ran? Hear me out. The first time she came to the well, she was running away from shame. She was running away from guilt, from pain, from sorrow. That's why she was there alone in the heat of the day, because she knew no one else would be there. But she left the well that day running away for a different reason. She came running from shame and guilt. She met Jesus, and she left running away again in joy and freedom. You see, God saw her. Hear me out. God saw her for all that she was ashamed of. He saw all of it. I want you to, in this room right now, eyes on me, in this room, you have things. 2 weeks ago in our small groups, we asked the question, do any of you have sins that you've kept secret? You have things that you don't want anyone to know, and you just kind of hide these things to yourself. So did she. But she came face to face with Jesus, and instead of rejection, which she feared, which we all fear, instead of rejection, God in the flesh accepted her completely. He loved her completely, which no one had ever really done before. So she came running from shame and guilt, and she left that day in joy. Here's what I mean. She ran that day for a second time and told everyone in her town about Jesus. And I want you to see what she told them. She literally ran from that well. She ran into the town to tell everyone in the town what had just happened. And I'm going to show you the verse on the screen. Let's put it right here. Do you see what she tells everyone? Do you see what she's witnessed? She's like telling the entire town, you got to come and see the man who told me all that I ever did. There's nothing more horrifying than someone walking up to you, being able to tell you all that you ever did. You see, we all have this shame. We all have this guilt. We all have these things in our lives that we keep dark, we keep hidden, because we worry that if someone saw it, we worry that if someone knew it, they would never look at us the same. And that day, she was the same. She came to the well hiding. She came to the well knowing that if people knew that they would reject her. But Jesus walked up to her and met her with her greatest fear. And the greatest fear that we all have is this, that anyone could walk up to us and say, I know what you've done. I know exactly what you did that day. I know exactly what you're ashamed of. In fact, I saw it all. I was there. You'd be horrified, but this woman was not horrified. Instead, she was overjoyed, and she ran and told everyone, come and see the man who told me everything I've ever done. What is going on here? If someone walked up to you and said, here's everything you've ever done, would you run away joyfully? Dear God, no. That would be the worst moment of your life. Unless it was Jesus. You see, because despite the shame, despite the guilt, despite all that stuff, guys, hear me out. He accepted her. And she felt that. She felt seen. She felt like all of her stuff had been out there. And her greatest fear did not come to fruition. Instead, God was like, I know everything. And I think you're wonderful. In fact, I came to die for you. She was so thrilled that she ran to tell everyone about the dude who knew all her junk. You see, God knew her, and yet he made her feel safe. He made her feel accepted. He made her feel loved. The grace of God is this, that he already knows everything about you. He already knows all of it. Listen, God knows it all, and despite all that he knows about you, he offers you mercy. In other words, he offers you forgiveness from your sins, complete forgiveness, as if it never happened, the kind of forgiveness that forgets, the kind of forgiveness that says, I don't know what you're talking about. No, but this is what I did that day. God's like, what? What do you mean? It's not like he doesn't know. It means, in other words, he forgave you. But that forgiveness is not all. That forgiveness would be such a gift. What a joy it would be that we met God like she did, and he knew all that we'd done, and he goes, I love you deeply. That's not all it is. It's forgiveness plus. He does not just offer you forgiveness, acceptance, safety. He offers you freedom from sin now and forever. Hear me out. I'm almost done. The effects of sin in the world will be in full effect until Jesus comes back and brings heaven with him for those who love him. We're going to be in sin, and that's the way it is. The sin is in full effect. But you are just as free from your sin now as you will be in heaven. You will not be more forgiven in heaven. There's no way to be more forgiven. It's already complete. All that you've done, Jesus says, what sin? All that you're ashamed of, that you don't want anyone to know about. Jesus, God in the flesh, says, I accept you. I love you. I forgive you. You are free. That is grace. Here's tonight's big idea. God's grace means that all of you is safe with him. God's grace means that every aspect of you is safe with him. Last week, Abel talked to us about how God sees you. This week, I want you to understand that he sees you and all of it is safe. Maybe tonight it's time. Hear me out. Put your phones away. Maybe it's time tonight for you to take a step to agree with and accept God's view of you. Maybe it's time to allow all of you to be safe with God. Maybe it's time for all of you to become safe with others. I'm going to have Autumn come on up. During this song that Autumn's going to sing, it's the same song that we sang last week. I'm going to ask you to do two things. The first thing's going to happen during the song. Tonight I'm asking you to do two things. The first one I want you to do as she sings. Here it is. Number one, I invite you to confess your sin to God. In 1 John 1:9, the Apostle John says, if we are faithful, if we confess our sins, God is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Tonight, I want you to do something. While Autumn sings and plays, I want you to think of one sin. Even if you don't want it to be a sin, even if in your heart you're like, I don't want this to be wrong, I want you to think of one sin. Just call it what it is. It's a sin. I just want you to, in the quietness of your heart, you're not doing this out loud, just between you and God while she sings, I want you to confess it. I want you to take a moment in quietness to confess one specific sin. I want you to tell God what you've done or what you've been doing. I want you to tell him, God, I've been doing this, and I confess it. I just confess it to you. I want you to ask him to forgive you of your sin, and then I want you to say, I want you to help me learn how to stop. There's a line in the song that she's going to sing that says, God, don't let me stay the same. Only your love can change me. Look, grace is a product of God's love. I invite you tonight, inside of you, no one is going to know this is happening, to just confess your sin to God. Pick one. Pick a rough one. Pick one that you've been holding on to. Pick one that you're ashamed of and confess it. Tell him. The reason I want you to tell him is because you're going to meet the same God in that confession that the woman at the well did. You're not going to tell him something he doesn't know. It's not like you're going to surprise him with this sin. What you're going to meet and understand tonight is there's a God who you just confess to who actually loves you and is just going to say, I forgive you. I paid for it. You're free. You see, God's love can change you, but that starts with your willingness to trust that he's safe and to confess. That's the first thing I'm going to ask you to do tonight. The second thing I'll tell you when we're done with this song, but as she sings this song, just spend time, you and God. Listen to the words, and when you're ready, confess. We're going to bring the lights down. This is time right now for you, in the quietness of your heart, while she sings, to confess. Let's do that now.
Served a sacrifice of love, holy, holy, holy. I want to see the glory of all that you are and all that you've done. Jesus, the altar and made it a table. Nothing can separate what you bring together now and forever. I will remember. How beautiful the mystery. Christ, my hope, alive in me, and worthy, worthy, worthy. I'm caught up in the glory of all that you are and all that you've done. Jesus, Lamb of God, oh, what a Savior. You took the altar and made it a table. Nothing can separate what you bring together now and forever. I will remember now and forever. I will remember. I will remember. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me. Jesus, Lamb of God, oh, what a Savior. You took the altar and made it a table. Nothing can separate what you bring together now and forever. I will remember now and forever. I will remember. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me. Don't let me stay the same. Only love can change me.
Now that we've had that time to pray and confess, I'm going to give you your second challenge. Tonight, I want you to test the safety of this place. I want you to go into your group. And I want you to confess to your group what you just confessed to God. And I realize that in a lot of ways, when I just said that, many of our hearts sank. We're like, wait a second, Mike, you said this between me and God. And you're right, it is. Some of you may not be ready for that. You're in charge of you, not me. But I just want to challenge you with this. Confession is actually quite addictive. There is a prison that we put ourselves in with this silence of who I am and what I struggle with. And part of the reason we want to create a safe place for the real you is because I know, I don't just believe, I know that if you were to learn to begin a practice of confessing to God your sin and then sharing with other brothers and sisters and humans with what your struggles are, you're going to find that you receive way more grace from God and people than you ever thought you would. And when you receive forgiveness, when you receive grace, when you receive this acceptance, even though you are the sinful person, it's honestly one of the most freeing, wonderful things you've ever felt. That's why the woman at the well ran and told everyone, come meet the guy who knew everything about me. What an amazing dude. You got to come meet him. I just challenge you with this. I know it's scary. I know many of you don't want to. I know your heart is pounding. There's no way I could do that, but I just want to challenge you. You've confessed to God, and in your prayer, I asked you to say, help me to change. She just saying, don't let me stay the same. Well, let me tell you, the way you don't stay the same is you tell someone. Tonight, I challenge you. Confess to your group. Confess to your small group leader what it is you just shared with God. And experience perhaps for the first time how safe the people of God and how safe God actually is. We have a prayer wall in the back. If you have any prayer requests, even if it's just that as you're going into your small group, you're scared that you're going to confess, just go ahead and write a prayer request on that wall before we leave tonight. We're going to pray for every one of those. And for now, let's go to groups. You're dismissed.